Denver 7 On Demand is brought to you by Ferguson and BAC Appliance Center, the best in bath, kitchen, and lighting for your home.
I'm Shannon Ogden with the latest from Denver 7. A community bands together to save a beloved Denver restaurant, but the owner of Tom's Diner says he doesn't want to be saved. Tom Messina held back tears as he described the decades he has been serving breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Now, he loves his job. He just wants to sell his property now and move on. His neighbors have successfully lobbied to keep the building the way it is. And since our 360 report first aired, we have heard from so many of you baffled about how a group not even big enough to fill one of the diner's booths could take control away from the owner. Well, tonight, Denver 7's Jennifer Kovaleski is diving into the process and asking if it's time to make some changes.
I do not represent a real estate company or major developer. This is my only asset.
This story is bigger than Tom and his diner. This is about old versus new Denver and what can and cannot be saved. Before we dive back into the viewpoints, let's talk about how we got here.
Landmark preservation has been around since 1967.
You heard her right. City Council created Denver's Landmark Preservation Commission more than 50 years ago, with the whole idea of designating and preserving our history. And get this, there are almost 7,000 historic buildings who call the Mile High City home. We're talking 4% of Denver. So what does it take to get landmark status? Well, it's easier than you might think. A property owner, head of community planning, city council, or at least 3 Denver residents can file for what's known as landmark designation. Going back to Tom's Diner fight, 5 residents are the ones trying to save it.
It needs to meet 2 criterion in the following 3 categories of history, architecture, and geography.
The Landmark Board found the diner met all 3.
There's a lot at stake.
I would ask that you take my property rights, my story, and my family's future into consideration of this application.
If it's not a diner anymore, what can it be that's still in line with our history along Colfax?
We've already heard from the owner who wants to sell and says his future is on the line. Those fighting to save the diner who say this is about preserving history, and a regular calling for balance. Tonight we're hearing even more perspectives from you, our viewers, just as fired up. Even a Hollywood producer reached out. Dwayne wrote, "Why not build the high-rise condo in the parking lot of the diner? The design of the new building can either include the diner on the first floor or be set back with a side entrance." Sounds like a pretty good idea, right? A win-win, so to speak. Well, we looked into it. And Tom tells us building around the diner is a heck of a lot more expensive. They also say the diner is falling apart and needs major renovations, all of which add to the cost. Also keep in mind the developer is only willing to pay Tom nearly $5 million if they can demolish the diner, putting up this 8-story apartment building. Justin gave us his take too. He wrote it's a dangerous precedent to set where outside parties have a say on what are otherwise private matters of citizens. What's next? I can't sell my house? This is madness.
We reached out to City Council. They can't really say anything until this decision moves to Council next week. But we did learn Council is looking at changing the landmark designation process. A bill up next month would make it harder to file for landmark status and give Council more oversight. That first committee hearing for Tom's Diner, that is August 6th. Please keep letting us know how you feel about this. Are the rules outdated for historic properties? Is Tom being treated unfairly by the same people who want to preserve his diner? Email us your thoughts at 360@thedenverchannel.com. The 2 women behind a push to restrict abortion after 22 weeks will make their case to the state Friday. They will present 6 plans that vary in scope and in punishment for the providers. One initiative would add in a requirement that doctors try to save the life of a fetus if an abortion is deemed medically necessary. We'll find out tomorrow if one of these 6 plans passes muster with the state and becomes eligible to collect signatures. It's not official yet, but we can expect to see a repeal of the national popular vote law on the ballot in 2020. Organizers submitted a whopping 227,000 signatures to the state today. That's 100,000 more than they needed. The results still have to be certified by the state. The newly signed law calls for all of Colorado's electoral college votes to go to the presidential candidate who does the best in the popular vote nationwide. Several more states still have to sign on for this to ever take effect. Well, you can't win a presidential campaign in a couple months, but you can lose one. And as harsh as that sounds, John Hickenlooper and Michael Bennet are proving it right now. Both have really failed to make any kind of noise on the national stage, and they are in jeopardy of not making the cut for the next debate. The New York Times reports that only 7 candidates have enough support to meet the third round's strict qualifications. 3 others are close to reaching it. Hick and Bennett are on the outside looking in. One of the candidates sure to be on the debate stage next time is Kamala Harris. She'll have a rally tomorrow at Denver's Manual High School. Doors open at 5:15. You can RSVP online. And the national debate on climate change is taking center stage in Boulder now with a congressional hearing on the CU campus. It comes as experts at the school have a stark warning about melting in Greenland. Denver 7's Megan Lopez shows us the differing opinions on how best to curb climate change.
Boulder's is a hub for this research.
Inside this facility on the CU Boulder campus,
look at the green perimeter around Greenland. That means that it's melting.
Researchers are keeping a close eye on weather patterns half a world away. They're not liking what they're seeing.
Most of the island actually experienced some melting yesterday, which is really unusual.
Charts and data.
We were in southwestern Greenland.
Combined with their field work.
It was hot almost every day. So not only is Greenland losing ice, but it's also losing sediment.
Resulting in a record melt and a stark warning.
We're just at the beginning of this warmer climate that we're in for, and we can put the brakes on.
And while they monitor the effects of climate change just a couple of buildings away,
in this crisis, we need action now.
A call to action.
Leave it in the ground.
Protests on this campus, not unusual.
When we're talking about real bold climate action here in Colorado.
But this line and the meeting inside is.
We need to take bold action to address the climate crisis.
A Capitol Hill hearing playing out right here in Colorado, with a panel of energy experts facing 5 Congress members in a search for answers.
Climate change is global, and hence the solution must be global.
On a national scale and a local level.
We are actively exploring the creation of a city-run and community-owned electric utility.
Fort Collins is one of the most aggressive climate action plans.
While their opinions varied on how to curb climate change,
U.S. natural gas exports not only lower global greenhouse emissions.
Fracking is at odds with the basis of that.
Cheapest, least carbon-intensive energy is the energy you don't use at all.
All of them agreeing something needs to be done.
Let's be bolder, as we say here.
Back at the research center.
I think record events like this are going to become more frequent.
These climate experts are keeping an eye on the change.
It's accelerating. Everything's happening faster. Things are melting quicker.
And warning that now is the time to act.
We want to try and get this under control before really big changes in how the ice sheet flows into the ocean and melts off.
In Boulder, Megan Lopez, Denver 7.
And from the First Alert Weather Center, let's take a look at your forecast right now. We could see some more storms in the afternoon on Friday. Saturday, Sunday look, well, drier and warmer, as it should be here as we start August. And then we're in the same pattern we've seen so often as we start next week. This has been your Denver 7 on-demand update. Thank you for joining us. Check back later tonight for another one, and download the Denver 7 app for breaking news and alerts. I'm Shannon Ogden.